As May draws to a close, Days of Our Lives delivers an episode that is less about action, and more about heart. Airing on Friday, May 30th, this installment stands as a delicate, devastating turning point. No explosions, no shocking betrayals, just the silence of a hospital room, the raw grief of a family saying goodbye, and the complicated love of a town learning how to let go. This isn't just another Friday in Salem. This is the day the clock begins to run out on John Black. The May 30th episode of Days of Our Lives begins not with tragedy, but with a powerful emotional return. Will Horton steps back into Salem, a place full of memories, wounds, and complicated legacies. His arrival is marked by a quiet but deeply touching reunion with his grandmother, Dr. Marlena Evans. The moment they embrace feels like time collapsing into itself. For a brief second, the pain of recent weeks vanishes. There's no Arizona, no hospital waiting room, just a grandson who needs comfort, and a grandmother who has spent her life providing it. Marlena, ever the composed figure of strength, lets her mask slip. She holds Will close, not just to reassure him, but to ground herself. Her world is unraveling, John's condition is worsening, and the weight of impending loss presses harder every day. But in Will's arms, there is still something to fight for. Their hug is more than affection, it is a fragile shelter built between generations, a reminder that in Salem, family is both a burden and a blessing. Inside Salem University Hospital, time seems to move with painful deliberation. John Black, the moral compass of so many lives, lies unconscious in his bed. Wires trace his chest, monitors hum quietly, and the air is thick with the knowledge that each breath he takes might be his last. But even in this fragile state, John's presence dominates the room. He is still the man who stood for honor, for family, for redemption. The first to arrive at his bedside is Brady Black. He walks in trying to stay composed, but the second he sees his father, the facade shatters. Brady grips John's hand and leans in close, whispering words that never reach the audience's ears. Yet we don't need to hear them to understand. Every movement, every tear on Brady's face speaks volumes about the depth of their bond. Soon after, Belle Black appears, struggling to remain steady. Their relationship hasn't always been smooth, but the love between them was never in doubt. She gently places her hand on John's chest, her voice cracking as she speaks through her sorrow. She isn't just saying goodbye to her father, she's mourning the loss of her childhood protector, the man who stood by her through chaos and comfort alike. Then comes Paul Narita, quieter but no less overwhelmed. For Paul, John was never just a father figure, he was a reason to believe he belonged. Paul sits beside the bed in silence, his eyes distant, perhaps recalling the way John embraced him, flaws and all. His grief is understated, but potent. Finally, Eric Brady enters, carrying the calm reverence of a man shaped by faith and loss. Though not John's biological son, Eric's connection to him runs deep. John taught him resilience, showed him how to carry burdens with grace, and perhaps more than anyone, helped him understand that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the willingness to face it. Each of these goodbyes carries its own emotional weight, but together, they form a mosaic of heartbreak. As the episode lingers on John's still body, the room begins to feel less like a place of healing and more like a sacred chamber of remembrance. The slow farewell has begun. While one family mourns, another fractures. Over at the DiMera mansion, the atmosphere is far from peaceful. Johnny DiMera is teetering on the edge. Since EJ's shooting, Johnny has been acting increasingly erratic, distant from Chanel, short-tempered with his relatives, and consumed by thoughts he can't seem to express. Something about what happened haunts him, and though he hasn't shared the full story, his guilt bleeds through every look and silence. Kristen DiMera, ever the opportunist, wastes no time inserting herself into the chaos. She doesn't console Johnny, she pressures EJ. In a tense confrontation, Kristen urges him to take control of his son before his instability causes further damage. On the surface, she frames it as concern. But this is Kristen, and her concern often comes wrapped in ulterior motives. Her involvement sends shockwaves through the already fragile DiMera household. EJ, still recovering himself, isn't in a position to manage anyone, least of all his volatile sister and spiraling son. But Kristen's push for action raises the question, is she truly worried for Johnny, or is she using his vulnerability as a pawn in her next power play? For the DiMeras, manipulation is tradition. And in this house, emotions are currency. Johnny finds himself at the center of a storm he may not survive intact. And with Kristen moving the chess pieces, it's anyone's guess who she'll sacrifice, and who she'll save. Back at Salem University Hospital, time slows to a whisper. The machines surrounding John Black beep in a regular rhythm, their sounds more haunting than helpful. Each breath he takes is shallow, each moment more fragile than the last. The lighting is dim, casting a soft glow on the man who once stood as the heart of Salem. The hallway outside is empty. The goodbyes have already been spoken. One by one, John's loved ones have shared their final moments with him, some in silence, others through trembling voices. Now, all that remains is quiet. And into that quiet, Marlena Evans steps. She enters the room alone, her steps slow but certain. This isn't just another visit, it's the moment. Her moment. For decades, they've shared everything, triumphs, tragedies, resurrections, and regrets. But today, she doesn't plead or weep. She simply takes his hand, sits beside him, and begins to speak. Her words are soft, almost indistinct. She talks about their past, the laughter, the fights, the promises they kept and the ones they couldn't. She speaks of their children, their grandchildren, and the many lives they touched together. It's a conversation filled with memory, not desperation. She doesn't say goodbye, because when you've loved someone this deeply, for this long, there is no goodbye strong enough. No phrase worthy of that final breath. Only love, only presence. And in that still room, with only the sound of slowing breath between them, Marlena does what she's always done, she stays. Until the very end. The days that follow will change Salem forever. We already know John's funeral is scheduled for the first week of June. It will be one of the most significant events in Days of Our Lives in recent years, drawing familiar faces back home, reopening old wounds, and bringing with it a cascade of unresolved grief. But this May 30th episode marks a transitional moment. A sacred pause between life and death. Between the end of one legacy and the beginning of another. This is the space in which viewers are asked not just to mourn, but to reflect. Because while the town prepares to bury a hero, another is on the verge of rebirth. Bo Brady, who had lingered near death, will begin his journey back to life. And it won't be by coincidence. It will be because of John, because of his choice, his sacrifice, his final act of courage. It's a life for a life moment. Bittersweet, heroic, painfully just. This is what Days does best, crafting narratives that feel both larger than life and deeply human. As John fades into memory, Bo steps forward, carrying with him the weight of another man's goodbye. And for the viewers who've loved them both, it's a shift that's as poetic as it is devastating. May 30th, 2025, will be remembered not for its plot twists or shocking reveals, but for its profound emotional resonance. It was the day Salem stood still. When Will reunited with Marlena and reminded us of the strength of family. When Brady's voice cracked under the weight of unspeakable loss. When Belle held John's hand as if it could anchor her to the world. When Kristen DiMera, cold and calculating, saw in tragedy an opportunity for control. And most of all, when Marlena, the heart of this story, whispered love into the silence and gave her soulmate one final gift, peace. This episode didn't end in fire or betrayal. It ended in stillness, in tears, in the quiet kind of devastation that seeps deep into the viewer's chest and stays there long after the credits roll. Because Days of Our Lives doesn't always need explosions to shatter us. Sometimes, all it takes is the truth. And on May 30th, the truth was this: even the quietest day in Salem can echo forever. As the screen fades and the credits roll, one question lingers in the minds of every viewer. Which moment cut deepest? Was it the sight of Will Horton finally collapsing into Marlena's arms, after so much distance, so many missed milestones, only to find comfort at the worst possible time? Or maybe it was Paul Nerita's silence. The kind of silence that speaks volumes. The kind that says, you mattered. You saved me. And now, I don't know who I'll be without you. And what about Marlena? Her whispered memories, her quiet bravery as she sat by John's bedside. Did that final moment of stillness break you too? Of course, not all pain came from love. Some came wrapped in power. Kristen DeMara's cold calculation as she plotted her next move, under the guise of protecting Johnny, left many fans wondering, is this the beginning of a new reign of manipulation? What exactly does she have in mind? And how far will she go this time? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which scene haunted you the most? Which character's grief hit closest to home? And what do you think lies ahead for the DeMaras now that everything is shifting? If you've made it this far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, so you'll never miss an episode breakdown, theory, or spoiler from Salem's most turbulent days. Because this wasn't just another Friday. This was the end of an era. A legend was lost. And a new chapter has begun, one written in grief, redemption, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. Stay tuned. Because in days of our lives, even silence speaks.